everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Facade. I'm Doña Junta from Swami Chronicles, and welcome to episode 16.
Wow, 16. Hey, everybody. I'm Sabrina from Observing Spooks and Other Vices, and we have a special guest today.
I'm Wayne Poe from Mr. Poe's Morgue.
Okay, so today's episode was really inspired by one of the supporters on my Swami Chronicles page, and they asked a question, which I asked you guys, and we'll get to the question at the end of the episode, but we just decided, okay, why not just do an episode on? We're going to do Linda Vista Hospital in Boyle Heights. And so that we just decided to kind of dig deep into the history and also talk about the paranormal part of that, because I think that's kind of what it's known for the most part. And we're going to just dig into that on today's episode on Linda Vista Hospital in Boyle Heights. So thank you to that person that inspired the episode, even though I don't know, we should have probably done it before. We just didn't, but.
Yeah, just one of those things. There's so many gems out there. Well, at least we're getting to it.
Yeah. So I'm going to just start with some of the early history, because it wasn't always Linda Vista. It has gone through maybe like 3 name changes around there. And so I'm going to start with the early history and then kind of how it transitioned to the paranormal world, which I'm going to call it Linda Vista originally, but I'm going to get into the actual name of it. So Linda Vista Hospital has a long history. The hospital opened around July 1st, 1905, and served railroad employees who worked for the Santa Fe Railroad Company. The hospital was first called Santa Fe Coastlines Hospital. So during those days, obviously the rails were like very important for transportation and getting not just people, but like pretty much industry, right?
Yes, the railway opened up industry to Los Angeles, the port of Los Angeles, to the East Coast.
Yeah, so they needed a special hospital just like for the train workers and the people that worked on the rails. Kind of like how you see the VA hospital for veterans in a sense, right? So when they decided to build it right in the Boyle Heights, right across from Hollenbeck Park, which had already been there. The Hollenbeck Park was there from like sometime in the late 1800s. So they decided to build it in that part of the land right across the street. And you know, when I was doing some of the research, they had a really good description of how the hospital originally looked and, you know, how it looked around. So I'll describe some of that, what they wrote in the articles. So it was originally described as being surrounded by ornamental trees, shrubbery, and extensive flower plots. The main building had 2 to 3 stories, broad verandas, glass enclosed corridors, courtyard plotted with flowers, floors made of cement and hardwood through the corridors. The hospital originally had no angles, but coved hallways. Like there was a lot of coved hallways. I guess that made it easier to transport patients maybe. I guess that was innovative at the time, that there's no sharp angles in that part of the building. I had a number of fire escapes, and it was fireproof, which was like a big deal back in those days, that it's fireproof.
Definitely. Yeah.
It was also, it had some rooms too that were soundproof. So that was also a big thing. So there were 7 buildings connected by passageways. At the time, 100 patients, and then they added 150 more patients, availability of beds. The back of the main building was a 2-story for medical staff. And in that building, there was laundry, bakery, a kitchen, a dining room. And I liked it, was a really cool feature. And I don't know if you guys seen this later or if you remember, it was like a 3 steel tube fire escape, like a spiral slide fire escape. So
I've never seen it.
Seen anything like that.
Yeah.
That would be nice to see though.
Yeah. And it was for, you know, in case of a fire, they'll push the patients down this slide because the patients couldn't run down a fire escape. So they would be pushed down the slide. And they described an elevator like a novelty. It had buttons. There, there is heating and ventilation in the administration area. Patients would have indirect and or direct steam heat. And the third floor had a solarium so the patients could sunbathe. And that reminded me of the general hospital. Remember when on the roof of the general hospital, they would take them out in the middle of the day so they could sunbathe or get their vitamin D. I just imagine a bunch of hospital beds on the roof.
Yeah.
Which is so weird, right?
It really is kind of alarming in my opinion. But yeah, I can imagine it.
Yeah. So they had what they called a solarium. So it was a room specifically for that. The operating room was made of tile. It was circular and it had a dressing room which provided lotions and bandages. They had like a room for pathology, an X-ray room, a dark room for optical, and a morgue. The patient rooms, like when you would go in there, they had a cot, a glass top table, a chair, and they would pass around a porcelain bathtub so they could take a bath to each, patient. They'll roll it around. I thought that was cool.
That's different.
Yeah. And patients that had fever, they had certain kind of lighting with restful colors. So it's really interesting too.
It's interesting how far medical's come. Like, the discoveries have come this day. Like, yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah. The second floor had a reception hall and an office for physicians and surgeons. The third floor had 11 rooms, an open corridor, and a special diet kitchen. The cost at the time to build the place was about $80,000. So it was not even as much as you would think now for building a hospital. And at the time, the architecture was a Moorish style building, and it was designed by Charles Whitley, and W.H. Moore was the architect and the architect and building supervisor. So originally the building was the Moorish style, but I did find out that it did get a remodel to kind of what it is now, that facade, in 1938. So it got more of a mission revival style. They did remodel that front part of it, and that was remodeled by H.L. Gilman. So that I guess maybe they just wanted to change it in 1938. So I mean, obviously it was 30 years later, around there, they wanted to remodel a little bit. So
I wonder why. That's interesting. It's definitely the Spanish style, so the one that we see and we remember, and the one that Linda Vista that we think of.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna share my screen so I could show you guys like a slideshow, just a quick one of some of the stuff I found of some of the original photos.
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is the original building in 1905, how it looked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think that front part was remodeled to what we see now, right? More of the Spanish side, but originally it had that Moorish look.
Interesting.
What do you guys think about looking at it? Does it seem like completely different, or there's still some elements?
That's completely different.
Right?
There's elements though. It's like the bones, right?
Yeah.
It's like the bones underneath. It's interesting though.
Yeah.
That tower.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So this is just another angle, but these are some really old articles, so it's kind of hard to see, but
I like the ornamental aspects to it up there in the Moorish part right there.
Yeah.
The little cutouts. It's really interesting.
And here's a slide. Do you guys see the slide?
Ah, I see it.
So they even had a picture of like a person, like how it would look if they were going down the slide. That's so funny, right?
It is. That was smart. That was a smart idea. They were thinking out of the box for that one.
I feel like we've seen it on the side when, the driveway to the back. Is that it, or am I tripping?
Maybe. I think we got to go. We
do,
go
right?
back. Yeah, we have to.
So this slide was there, and then here's another picture of the early 1904, 1905. I'm sorry. So very different. And look at all this landscape. I mean, now there's a street right here. It completely, looks very, very different. So, and this was 1930s. It was like a kitchen area.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was interesting because when I seen it now, when I seen these old pictures, I'm like, something changed. So yeah, it, turns out that there was a remodel during that time. So also a couple of things that happened was there was some name changes. So there was a time that it was called Santa Fe Memorial Hospital. And in 1980, it changed to Santa Fe Community Hospital. And at the time, it was kind of criticized because I guess it was catering more to the Latino population. It had kind of started getting a bad reputation of like it wasn't caring for the poor, things like that. And later, I think in 1985, it was renamed Linda Vista Hospital, 1985. So it had those two names prior where it was still, and it was bought by a management, company that bought it and took it over, and that's where it became Linda Vista.
That's crazy. So this whole time we call it Linda Vista, when in reality it's been Santa Fe Hospital much, much more longer. Yeah. I remember it was Santa Fe before, but I didn't realize that it was so late that I got renamed.
Yeah. Santa Fe was community. So Santa Fe Community Hospital in 1980, but originally the Santa Fe Coastlines Hospital. So it had like similar names, right? But
yeah.
So so when it was Linda Vista in 1989, the emergency room closed because there was too many victims of gunshot wounds and they just couldn't handle it. During that time, as we know in LA, it was like a big gang epidemic. There was a lot of violence going on and it was just wild. So there must have been a lot of like gunshot victims and they had to close the ER in 1989, plus probably funding and all that too.
Yeah, you can only imagine the 80s and 90s were pretty hot even. Yeah.
Yeah, really, and then also because they couldn't handle the gunshot wounds, a lot of people ended up dying there because they couldn't handle like too many people. So they got criticized because they weren't able to take care of these people, right, that were coming in.
Yeah.
So a lot of the ghosts could be gangsters.
And we've all, since the beginning of time, or not the beginning of the time, but beginning since I've investigated, that's always been a thing. That's always what they have said. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, also around that time, a lot of the trauma rooms in Los Angeles were being closed, and people were criticizing that because where is everybody going to go if these emergency rooms are closing? And so it wasn't only Linda Vista; it was several hospitals around LA County.
Yes, you're right. So there started to be decline in patient rolls, and then in 1991, it finally closed after 86 years, like for good. So it closed during prime time of gang warfare. We're done. So everybody went to LAC, USC.
Or over here, the little General Harbor UCLA hospital.
Yeah.
Which is #1 for trauma. Gunshot wounds now. It really is.
Yeah, and they even fly you over there to the helicopter and all that.
Yeah.
So what happened after 1991? So after that, it was used extensively for film and television. So there's a ton of TV and film produced there. I didn't really get a chance to look at all the movies and TV film there. Maybe Wayne, if you know of any, you could share. But
one of them I know is Pearl Harbor. Filmed some scenes there.
Okay.
Recently, it was Insidious 2, filmed in there in the fake. They had a fake church building.
Okay.
The church interior with pews and windows. They filmed there. The other ones I don't really come off my head, but there's a lot of independent movies filmed there. A lot of porn movies.
Oh, wow.
All the time filming there. And like I said, there was some major production. I think it was for TV. It was, I want to say, Supernatural and something else, something to do with horror film. I don't know if it was Buffy. I don't think it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It was something else. I'd have to look at the
it said about over 60 films and TV shows and music videos through the years. And I don't doubt Buffy, because I always hear that was filmed all over LA, even at Angela's Rosedale. So maybe it was. So in 2006, it was officially put on the National Register of Historic Places, so it is safe. And in 2011, it got bought by developers and it turned into the Hollyback Terrace. And it is currently now affordable senior housing. They did keep a lot of the historic elements because it was, it's a registered place, so they couldn't really change a lot. But they did keep a lot of some of the original windows. Something called dumb waiters. I don't even know what that is. If it's like
that's where in the older days, like the 30s and stuff, if you had to deliver food up to a next floor, they from the kitchen they'd put it in what's called a dumb waiter. It's like this little mini elevator for food, and you'd pull it up to the next floor.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, dumb waiters, and then like some of the mailboxes, I guess, for the patient, the residents are in there. So yeah, so that's kind of like the history of it, which I thought it was really cool because, again, I only heard of it as kind of Linda Vista, but never really knew the background of it. So yeah, and then the architecture, how it did change. So next, we're gonna kind of just dive into the paranormal element, because that's kind of how you guys became involved, right? As far as
definitely
the paranormal. And we could start with Wayne. Just share, how did this become a thing, this place become a place to go for the paranormal for you?
I was doing my documentary in 2010. I called several groups around LA, and one of them was 3 a.m. Paranormal, and we couldn't agree on a few things. Like, for instance, the one of the owners of 3 a.m. wanted full editing decisions on what I'd film, and wanted to keep the footage. And I said, it was my first documentary, but immediately I said, no, I'm not going to let anybody control what I'm going to edit or film, So we didn't really hit it off too much. But then later, what's her name? Marsha, who was at 3 a.m. Paranormal, but also she was with a group called the Paranormal Housewives. So she called me up as a 3 a.m. representative and say, well, we find kind of a middle ground. We're filming with them. And she said, well, we're going to be filming my group. I mean, not filming, I'm sorry. She wanted to investigate my group at Linda Vista Hospital, my new group, Paranormal Housewives. And Joe and Rebecca will be there, but they're not going to be filmed. And I said, okay, that sounds good. So they invited me to Linda Vista Hospital. I went down there and filmed with them. And 3 a.m. Paranormal was also there. They were doing some investigating off to the side. And what happened is, this is before it got taken over.
It's 2010? 2010?
2010.
Okay.
Yeah. This is around June 2010, I believe. What local paranormal investigators would do is basically pay off the guy that was the caretaker of the building, to investigate in there. But unfortunately, the guy would also invite other people to come in too. So in the middle of your investigation, you got other people walking down the hall and messing up your investigation. And they're going, what's going on? And the guy said, well, it's a big place. That was his excuse, So
he would invite other investigators, or like people shooting
other people
porn?
just want to explore it, not even investigators.
Oh.
Like, for instance, in my documentary Night Stalkers, I'm filming with them, and they had to stop because do you hear those voices? Did you hear a voice? And they thought it was paranormal, but no, it was somebody walking down the hallways of a little group of teenagers.
Yeah, we are paranormal investigators, and we're doing a thing that way.
Okay.
So, if you guys are going to be here, we should not be on the floor then. We'll go upstairs.
Yeah, where were you guys planning on being on this floor?
Oh, we're just going to be walking around. We're just finding out a couple of things. We'll work around you guys. We'll work around because we'll be here for a little while.
Okay, so are you going to be on this floor?
We're going to look on this floor and then we're going to go upstairs. But if we see y'all around, then we got plenty of stuff to do.
Okay, well, we just have to know where you guys are just because we are recording and we're trying to catch stuff that's not human.
Oh, okay.
And so if we know it's you guys, like if we hear like footsteps or
really
talking.
gonna find something that's not human here?
Oh
Yeah.
We've
Don't tell
documented
me
stuff here
that-
before.
oh, yeah. Okay.
What have you found?
A lot.
I even filmed it. Then we went out there and said, "What are you guys doing here?" Oh, they let us in. So yeah, really. So that's why. I mean, that's the first time I was there, and I was there I was there a lot. I went there a lot, and with other investigators, and just sometimes they would call me to come down and film something.
What time would you guys be doing these, or you would be doing these investigations? Like,
well, that first one, that was right during the day, like 11 o'clock in the afternoon, and now of course some get-togethers we'd go at night, and we'd sit in matter of fact, a Ghost Adventures film there, and supposedly the guy saw this ghost right in one of the medical rooms, and we sat in there. I sat right next to the door where the guy saw the ghost, and we all sat in there in the dark trying to record voices and things like that. And it's an old building, so you'd hear like bangings and stuff like that. You're not sure what it is, but then again, some of the windows were broken and everything, so it's could be a noise from outside. It could be anything.
so what do you consider like your experience with like anything like really like, oh my god, this is creepy, like, or was it just kind of what your personal?
Like I said, I was there a lot, and other investigators tell me how they've seen shadow people and caught all these voices and stuff. I didn't catch one EVP. I didn't see anything, nothing at all. I just recorded people's experience. But the one thing that happened was after a while they'd show movies at a haunted location. So I think
cool.
it was a movie called The Orphanage or something like that. And afterwards, I heard my first disembodied voice right there in Linda Vista. So it was like I was the room that they showed the movie, and it pretty much cleared out, and there was a couple people here and there, and like right behind my ear, right here, I heard somebody say Wayne, and it was a female voice. So I looked around, I thought it was just somebody standing behind me, and there's nobody there. And I looked around, I even looked behind, see if there's a wall, I looked everywhere, and there was a couple of people in front of me. So I walked up to them, I said, did you guys call me? And he goes, no. And then the woman that was with them saying, I don't even know who you are. I tried to figure out, because at that point I was really more skeptical than I am now. So I tried to figure it out. So could it be like a voice from outside that bounced off the walls or something? I was just getting more stupid and stupid. It was a ghost. I guess what is it? It's a ghost maybe. But if somebody was right there, just like normal, it wasn't spooky or anything like that. I thought someone was right behind me, and then I heard my name being called right behind me. So that's what really started getting me. Gee, I wonder if this stuff is real,
Right. So you would say that you started going from 2010, and then like the next few years, it was a place you were going to.
Yeah, well, there was an incident that probably Sabrina would get more into around the end of 2011. That a lot of the paranormal investigators decided to stop going there.
Okay. But it had, before you had gone there, and maybe you could answer that, Sabrina, on your part, it was already known for a place, because from what the history, obviously it's been closed since 1991. So it had a lot of time that it's been kind of empty. So it sounds like it's had been a place that people were going already for some time, or
urban explorers, that would break in some of the windows, and they walk in and film stuff or take pictures. Like a lot of people do in abandoned buildings, and there was one guy that lived there along with the caretaker was there. Then a guy they called a security guard, but basically just lived there and watched over the buildings. And from what I heard, you could pay him like $20 and go into the buildings whenever you want to.
Yeah, that's so weird, huh?
happens a lot. For instance, at the Cecil Hotel, that's happening now. If you find a certain security guard, you can just pay them off and walk right in.
Yeah, we didn't get that lucky last time, but
No.
Sabrina was trying to get in.
I tried hard, but I don't think that Doña Junta really wanted to go in the nighttime that bad.
So yeah, that's really interesting. So how did you, Sabrina, how did you kind of come into play during this era?
So I was a newbie paranormal investigator. I want to say it was 2009 or 2010. I can't remember the date, but I was a newbie investigator. I'd only been on, maybe 10 investigations, maybe, and they were all like residential. So residential investigation just basically means that it's inside of a home. So we're investigating paranormal activity inside someone's home. So at this point, I hadn't had a big location like Linda Vista Hospital. The very first time I came across Linda Vista Hospital was an event, and it was an event held by a team. And probably, I would say, by looking at the picture, which we will have up, there was probably like 50 of us, or maybe a little bit less, maybe 30, but there was quite a large amount of people. And I met a lot of paranormal people that are still active to this day, and who were just starting out, just like me, way back then. I hadn't met Wayne at that point yet. But I did go in, and I went in with my team leader and a couple other members of my team that went with us. And it was pretty amazing to go into this location. I remember my eyes being so big and being so excited to see something on this grand of a scale as opposed to just residents, and it's overbearing. Like it definitely commands its attention. And right from the very beginning going in, you could see. So when I first went in, right off the bat, we started having paranormal activity. I saw one of the most gigantic shadow people I've ever seen, and it was pretty freaky. I hadn't seen a shadow person, to my knowledge, that I would say that's definitely a shadow person. I hadn't seen one at that point yet, not like that. And I wasn't the only one who saw it. Other people that I was investigating with saw it, because they were like, "Oh my God, look over there!" And you look over there, and we're talking how big would the walls? What are the lengths, the height of the walls? You would say, Wayne, like downstairs, like with the operating rooms and stuff like that. Pretty tall, probably like 10 plus feet.
Oh yeah.
Tall. Yeah, so it's pretty tall. This shadow, we're standing kind of off by the elevators, and we're looking in the distance to the right, and you could see a shadow person that's like in the crease of like the ceiling. So like the body's going all the way up toward the ceiling, and the rest of like the upper torso is up on the ceiling. So like the body is the wall and up to the ceiling, and there's nobody there. Wow. And while yes, there was so many people there that day, there was absolutely nobody in that area where we're at that could have made that kind of a shadow against the wall. So it's pretty creepy. I will say Linda Vista was not a very nice place to be. Like there's a lot of places I like to go where even though I feel paranormal activity, I feel safe. I wouldn't say Linda Vista is one of them. Had some strange experiences. My team leader and I've been there multiple times, maybe 4 in total, not as many as Wayne. But one time, my team leader and I, when we were on an investigation, I don't think it was the same time, we went downstairs into the basement part, and it's pretty creepy. And I got this feeling of like, man, we got to get out of there because something was following us. And it wasn't just me, it was her as well. So we got up pretty quick, and we were just kind of creeped out by it. Linda Vista has this way of kind of drawing you in, and I wouldn't say that they don't want you there. I just feel like they want to interact with you, the spirits or whatever's in there. Also, you can help me, Wayne. What is the building across the way? When I first started investigating, they used to say that that was a, like insane asylum or whatever, but I think it was just the doctor's offices.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
That one on the side?
Yeah.
It was at first it was for the nurses to stay there for like a place to live, so they want to travel so far.
Yeah.
And eventually after that, it was a place where families could, like almost like a little hotel. Families could stay while they were waiting for their loved ones to be treated in Linda Vista. So they'd stay there for a few days or a couple weeks, whatever they need to do. So they wouldn't have to travel that far from their people either.
And that makes sense.
It was not an insane asylum.
When I first went there, for the longest, that's what everyone said. You remember that rumor, though, right? You've heard it before, right? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So everyone was like, that's an insane asylum. And there was like this one room that was supposed to be especially more haunted than the entire rest of the room.
I think it was 216.
Yeah, I remember there was a 6 in it. I just remember it's the one on the top floor, right? In the corner. Yeah. And so we investigated it. And of course, there's all, old buildings always have noises. And we could chop it up to whatever we want, but I definitely had a lot of paranormal experiences. And I will mention that that building has like a subterranean or underground little connection. It has a tunnel that goes into the main hospital. And so that was pretty creepy and fun. I mean, fun for a paranormal investigator.
Yeah.
What was that?
It's probably still there. I don't know if they've boarded it up or filled it in or whatever. It might still be there. It's a tunnel that goes under the parking lot. It connects Linda Vista Hospital to that building off to its left side if it's facing you.
Yeah, I think for historic preservation, you can't really do big alterations. So they probably kept it, so I'm sure it's there maybe for some other use.
Yeah, probably not the best use if it's some of the people that used to hang out there are still there and in charge somehow.
No, what we'll talk about later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. It's completely different, but it was a creepy place, and for a newbie investigator, it was the perfect place to go. It was the place that everyone in the scene was going to because it was so easy to get in. There was a paranormal team that kind of had like a monopoly on it, and I won't mention what team because it's not important anymore. But they allowed or didn't allow specific people to go in. They would have nightly tours. They would charge you like $45 a person to go in and investigate. Of course, that's not bad for an investigator, but the bad thing is they had a monopoly on that place, and they were doing a lot of really strange things in there, which only spiraled into in my opinion, the whole activity as well. Like the spirits in there ate it up. They were enjoying all of this nonsense. And the last time I went was in 2011 with the Paranormal Stu Con. And it used to be like a little convention for the paranormal. And I had a really bad experience with the people running it.
Just real quick before you get into that, just out of curiosity.
No, please.
Now that you guys heard the description of some of the architecture inside, do you guys remember any of that, or was it just too dark to kind of see?
I filmed there during the day, and it's just the halls were big, like Sabrina said. They're like 10 feet tall, and they're kind of rounded off.
Okay, maybe that could be part of the round thing they said.
The top of the hallway is kind of rounded off like this with the lights going down. I mean, there wasn't really, it looked like just a regular hospital. It wasn't really anything that stood out. I guess after the renovations from the early days to the modern day before it closed, they just, let's just make it a hospital, no special spiraling slides.
I know.
I will say that when you say that the curving of the hallways, I can vaguely remember that, because I vaguely remember, if I'm remembering correctly, like a nurse's station at the end, and I don't remember a hard edge. I remember it kind of curving off. But you gotta, for me, I've never been there during the daytime like Wayne. I only went as like an investigator in the night, and I didn't go as many times as him. And in the evening, it's nearly pitch black. They have a couple of areas that have like lights on, but what you do if you've ever stayed in the pitch black and not gone to sleep is your eyes start to adjust, and unfortunately you don't get to see all the nice little details of the architecture. And I have to be honest, I wasn't really looking for it back then as well, because I'm on like the fight or flight right now, because it's like we're hunting out ghosts, if you will. We're trying to capture them, and we're trying to find evidence and have an experience. And boy, did we. I mean, we were in that fake morgue, and there's like a fake morgue in there. Can you explain more about that, Wayne?
You said fake morgue? Fake morgue?
A fake morgue.
It was used for film locations so much, and some of the parts of the building say, yeah, go ahead, whatever you want to do, and they'd renovate so much. Like for instance, they had a church set, a big huge part of the building was made look like a church with wooden cross beams and stuff like that, and a chandelier hanging, and the big windows. The windows were original to the building, but they made them look like it was a church. And it's like even a pew in front. I mean, a place where you spoke in front with the pews on the side. So they left once the filming wrapped. They just left it like that because
I remember that.
Why tear it down? And across the hall from that place, it was the fake morgue. It wasn't the real one. It was just a set, and I actually filmed where you can open it, and there's a place to put the bodies in and everything. But it wasn't real. It was just a set.
It was like a big set, almost like a paranormal Disneyland or something.
It really was.
And plus, the guy that ran it, that was the caretaker, he'd buy stuff like old equipment and just put it in the hallway and stuff like that to make it look creepier.
I see.
And boy, did it look creepy. If you go down there in like the operating room, they have the slabs, the gurneys, and like some medical equipment. And now, after all these years, we know that some of it, like Wayne is just saying, was there for looks. But it definitely felt off, and there was a cold feeling about Linda Vista. A very, I'm telling you, not so nice feeling, but almost like in a mocking kind of way. And I know that sounds weird to say. It's almost like they just wanted to interact with people. It wasn't a good feeling. There's definitely lots of experiences. There was a chapel on one of the second floors or something, right? Do you remember that, Wayne? Because I remember one, like you're describing a moment ago, but it wasn't on the first floor. It was upstairs. Because I remember it being upstairs, and there was a church and the pew and everything.
Well, maybe that was the second floor, but there wasn't two of those. It was just one. Matter of fact, I see the room now. It's a big community room. Everybody sits around and relaxes in the Hollenbeck Terrace. In their website, I see that room and how they repurposed it. It's the same thing. It's the same room. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some, and then that little tunnel is pretty creepy too. And the basement's bizarre. It makes you wonder what they were doing during the active times when it was an active hospital in between the two buildings. Like, what was the purpose? And I mean, there's many purposes that it could be used for, but in the basement, it's a very bad, not very nice feeling that I always got when I was down there.
Well, in the early description that I was reading, they wanted to connect everything, so there was passageways for all the buildings to connect.
Yeah,
I guess it was just innovative architecture at the time.
Yeah, to my knowledge, when I was going, there was just that one passageway. Maybe they had been blocked off on the other end. But again, this isn't dark, and I don't know enough. I'm young, I'm in my 20s, so I'm not really speaking up, asking about like, the architecture and all the little different, pieces. And I wish, if we could go back and do it all over again. There's so many things. But then they've got those amazing little archways on the side. I always remembered those with the little balconies and and that's something architectural.
So, okay, so bring us back to what kind of ended the whole era of Linda Vista. You said there was like a big situation that happened, and how did that kind of end of an era?
Sabrina causing trouble as usual.
That's Sabrina.
That's Sabrina.
That's an inside joke. Old paranormal investigators called me that Sabrina. I am that Sabrina. So anyway, so there was a Stu Con.
What is Stu? What is Stu Con?
I don't remember. The person who used to run it
was named Stu?
He had like a show. Didn't he have a show called The Stu or something like that?
The Paranormal Stu, yeah.
Oh. He had a show, like a little YouTube show or something like that called The Paranormal Stu. I had never watched an episode. Anyway, he made like Stu Con, so it was like a convention, and it was my first one. I was so excited, and I actually my team leader and I were there the night before. We went on like a paranormal spree. We met up with some friends of hers. That one was actually a cop, and he got us into some places that we should not have been in. And we were drinking, and we were having a blast. And we ended up at Linda Vista Hospital at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And the people of Stu Con who were running it, 2 guys, they were asleep at the psychiatric ward, which is like, the second building, right?
Now
yeah, well, that's what I knew it to be back then. For a long time, that's what I thought it was. So that's what I thought it was. So we were running amok. I remember like my stomach was going off, and we were making jokes because we kept making some investigating. You want a quiet environment, and then if someone's stomach grumbles, you can hear that, and it's like a joke. So I remember all these fun things we were doing. We were literally running up and down the stairs like nobody's business, having fun. And the 2 old men were on the floor, like on their sleeping bag or whatever, snoring. And we left. And later on that day was Stu Con. It was my first one. I was so excited. We wore our little paranormal shirts, and I'll have a picture for you guys to see. Young Sabrina in her shirt, her team shirt. And we went with another friend team. I saw Wayne. At that point, I had known Wayne at that last time. I have pictures. Actually, we have pictures. You and I and Joe. Yeah, you'll have to provide those for us too. And we have pictures, and we were having fun and mingling with people and meeting new people. It was a blast. And at some point, me and my team leader and the friend paranormal team, we decided to go off to the fake chapel. Now I remember, it's all coming back to me. There was a fake chapel because we were looking for Wayne Poe because he had a puppet thing going on, of all things.
I was actually showing the very first showing of my documentary that I was making since 2010. I finished it, and I asked, can I show it at the Stu Con? And they go, yeah, sure. So they let me film it at set it up at the Stu Con that no one could find.
Yes.
Long story.
Well, whatever it was that you were doing, we were looking for you. And we kind of followed these like caution tapes, and we sat down in like the fake chapel. Now I remember there was the fake chapel.
I gotta say one thing. This is after I left. We took pictures and everything. We said our goodbyes, and you guys went back in. This is after I left.
But we didn't know you left.
Oh, okay.
That's why we were looking for you, because we wouldn't be looking for you if we knew you left. Oh. We went looking for him, and we followed the yellow caution tape and stuff, and then we ended up at the fake chapel. There was a fake chapel. Now I remember it. There's a real chapel on the second floor in the hospital. The fake chapel, the one that you were talking about, I remember it now. And we were in there for a while, and we're like, oh, we don't know where to go. So we kind of sat down and relaxed because a girl on our team, her foot was hurting, and we were met by security. And at this point, it had a reputation for being rough. Like the team that ran this hospital, like the whole people coming in and out, they were kind of had a reputation for being rough because they're from Los Angeles. We'll just say that. And so they had that persona, and that's what they liked, and that's what they pushed. And the security guard came at me crazy and cursing, not at just me, all of us cursing at us crazy to get the F out of there, right? And 20-year-old Sabrina, not that my age now, Sabrina would take that, but I certainly was not taking it back then. I was a little rough around the edges my own self. So I, bowed back at him, and we were just having a shouting fight. We left out of the area, and we kind of like went on our own in a little circle and to try to regroup. It was getting late, and my team leader decided to confront the person who runs Stu Con and the person who was running the whole program, the paranormal program there, and he mouthed off at her. He told her that it was her fault, and it was a big mistake. It was all miscommunication, and if we could have all been adults, it could have been different, but everyone just took it to extremes. And unfortunately, because of that, because she had a lot of clout in Southern California of who she was, she had been investigating for a very long time. My team leader, she rallied a bunch of people, and oppositely, they rallied, the team that started all this drama, or the one that ran Linda Vista, I should say, they also rallied a lot of people, and it became, like us versus them. And it really fucked up the whole paranormal scene in Southern California. Because if no one wanted to cross barriers. Like if you agreed with this person, with my team leader, then you couldn't hang out with the people at Linda Vista and vice versa. So it became the end of a beautiful thing that was here in Southern California, or in California in general, because a lot of the people that were at Stu Con were actually from more northern parts of California. And unfortunately, to this day, it's only gotten worse with the election and stuff like that. So, so unfortunately, there's not a very active paranormal community in California. It used to be a thriving one, and now everything's really low key.
Yeah.
But Linda Vista was the site of this, and I can't blame Linda Vista, but I almost wonder if Linda Vista just sat there like, yeah, this is the shit, because that place loved bullshit. It just loved bad energy.
But you guys are saying it because of like the hood element to it, like the gangsters that passed away there?
No.
Well,
not that literally the gangsters, but just kind of like that part.
Here's the thing, and then this is the thing for me, and I can only speak for myself, and Wei can speak for herself. Me going in, you know me, you know who I am, and you knew who I was. We didn't know each other 20 years ago, like, or 15 years ago, or whatever, 13 years ago, almost, but not quite. But I come from that kind of lifestyle. So it used to get me like really upset when people used to be like, oh, this is hood. Like there's an actual, and Wayne can back me up on this, on the Linda Vista episode and Ghost Adventures. I think he's talking shit about Linda Vista and it being in Compton or something like that. He refers to how bad it is and it's in Compton. And I was like, what the fuck? Like what? Like why? And all these cholos and all these gangsters. And I'm like, but that's, so I used to go in there and have to deal with people with that kind of.
Well, Zach Bagans is a little extreme, and he's like this. He's like he feels like this homeschool white guy that's never had any adversity in his life and was always in a good neighborhood. So when he sees people that look slightly tough or something, he's like, "Oh my God, I don't want to walk around here,"
But also it's interesting because if you're investigating, are you only looking for spirits from 1899? Like, what does it really matter?
Yes, and we have this joke that like, why are all the paranormal hauntings always with these young little white girls in these like Victorian nightgowns? Like, right. Why aren't they like people that are more modern? And yes, and they're I'm sure a lot of those souls are people that are, I don't want to say trapped. I think they probably trapped their own selves, maybe with their unfinished business or for whatever reason. But maybe they were characters and maybe not so nice here on the street.
There's actually unconfirmed rumor about Linda Vista that a gangbanger haunts the place and a doctor that was killed haunts the place. The rumor goes that in the trauma room, a gangbanger came in after being shot up and he died, and the guy's friends hunted down the doctor in the parking lot and shot him because their friend got killed. But and Dr. Edwards, it's not a confirmed thing. It's just people been pushing down that story over and over again. I can't find anything even remotely about that.
So let me tell you a little bit. Like I try to find the facts and look at articles from different newspapers through the years.
Yeah,
I didn't find any kind of big dramatic deaths or like any shooting like that. That would definitely be in an article.
All right.
The only deaths I found were like the main doctor, as far as like the one that was there for 30 years. He passed away, like in general, like, oh, he passed away. There was like in the early years, deaths of like engineers from the train company, like they passed away during the train crash and had to breathe, things like that. But
that's actually why the hospital was built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even like the 80s, 90s, because Linda Vista, I mean, it was honestly only there a very short time as Linda Vista, right? From 84 to 91. So that's not
even a decade.
Right. So, but even during that time, there was not a lot of like crazy articles about any kind of like I saw more on the General Hospital one. So,
well, maybe suppression. We don't know how bad it was. We can only imagine how bad it was, and not just at Linda Vista, but anywhere in Los Angeles during that time. And I think that some of the souls that are there, they're just not ready to let go of their, of their path. They want to interact and they want to affect people still to this day. Rather not they're gangsters. I'm not saying it's because they're gang members, but I feel like they're just not ready to move on, and they enjoyed it. They enjoyed the encounters with investigators and anyone else who come and look. Had some really weird experiences there.
Yeah, and I think also maybe it's hard to imagine, like maybe that it is a more modern spirit. I guess because in the Latino community, we do all these rituals to send them to heaven, the rosary for 9 days, and it's not even discussed that they're going to be a ghost or paranormal, so yeah, it's not something we hear about at all. So I could see why maybe that sounds kind of weird, or we don't think about it as much.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense culturally. It really does. But also it makes sense because it's in the community and it's ties and, that lifestyle. You can imagine how old the ages of these people who were being murdered during that high, time during the gang wars, and who knows?
But but realistically, if they did pass away from something very tragic or unresolved, maybe they are going to be like upset, right? We just don't
know. And this was built for like the railroads, and we know how dangerous railroads were back then. What if the employees got maimed or died in there too? It could be someone from that time too.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a whole new perspective that I certainly did not look as an investigator back then, but definitely, us being friends over the years and now look at where we're at with this whole podcast and our perspective now, it almost makes me want to go back and investigate everything I did before with this whole new different eyes,
Yeah, that would be cool.
Really does.
You could do that.
I mean,
I guess you could on the outside.
I was there a lot. Obviously, I can't go back. And I was there. I was at Camarillo State Medical Hospital a lot. And I don't really feel like going back because I feel like we've just done it to death. I'm not sure what else different we can do there. But one of the things that I did at Linda Vista, I was there so much, I asked them, can I show my movie there? And they said yes. So I had a meeting with them. I said, well, we're going to put it in the chapel and you'll have the whole thing set up. It'll be great. And I said, okay.
Wayne, this is your theater.
Yes. We dressed it especially, made it distressed and everything, especially for the Stu Con. Usually it looks a lot better than this, but we decided to have it like a gothic, run-down look.
I love it.
Really nice, man. So what are you going to be showing tonight?
Documentary Night Stalkers.
Oh yeah, I saw the previews for that.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see that.
So yeah, it should be, once we get power in here, it's going to be a really good time.
Awesome, awesome.
There was a guy there that used to hang out with 3 a.m. Paranormal. He hung out at Linda Vista a lot. I mean, he practically lived there, much more than I would visit, And normally he'd be just a silly guy and he'd tell jokes and things like that. But I was watching him in the office the whole time. He was sitting there like this, just like that. And I go, hey, Louis, I'm sorry, I said his name. Louis, are you okay? And he goes, yeah, I'm okay. I'm cool. And then he'd go back to like this, I said, that's so weird, So they took me to the chapel and said, let's set up this and that. And so I said my goodbyes. And as I'm walking out of the building, I see Louis in the guy's, the caretaker's office. He's like a puppet. Everybody just does like stuck in a corner. He's just like this. I'm going, what is going on with this guy? Like I don't know if he's being taken over by something, because paranormal investigators would warn me, don't get too attached to a place, because it'll start drawing you back there more than you don't even want to go, but you're there. And some things can kind of take you over. And of course, being like a borderline skeptic, I didn't believe any of that stuff.
He wasn't on opiates.
I don't know.
It sounds like a
He
kind of an opiate high. You're like on a euphoria.
I don't think
I mean, maybe
Wasn't he
Vicodin.
trying to be a nurse or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could be, but he didn't come off like that to me when I've met him.
Yeah, I used to hang around with him a lot because he used to hang out with 3 a.m. Paranormal a lot, and he was always, kind of goofy sometimes, But that day he was just maybe he had a bad day. I don't know, but it just looked to me like he was just like, he's just like in his own trance, and you have to like hit him and, hey, Louis, you okay? Yeah, I'm good.
Weird.
If anything, he would be like hypoglycemic, like, or he's having some kind of diabetic issue or something.
Sure.
That sounds like more than anything else, but it could be paranormal too. Yeah, the gatekeeping there and the gatekeeping by the paranormal investigator team that had a control over it just got really bad. But a lot of people, like even random people that are just, Los Angelinos that wanted to see something interesting, had been in there. So I'm so surprised you never went in there.
Well, I was going to share about why I even knew about it. But before we get to that, is there any special part of the building you could say is your favorite part you went to, like architecture-wise or investigation-wise, that you liked?
The one place I liked, I think it was a surgical suite when the hospital was active. And that's the big place where the Ghost Adventures episode where the guy sees the ghost and runs out of the building. That was the big section where I used to like investigating there. The paranormal investigators I went to, they'd always go to that room and set up and sit down and set up recorders and everything and have EVP sessions and stuff like that. That was my favorite part.
I really remember having long conversations, and I'm just thinking in my head back then when I was young, like, come on, let's get a move on. And it was because I didn't know anyone and I was young. And I remember those arches with those balconies with the stairs right there. That's really lovely. And recently, you and I went not too long ago, and it looks so different in the daytime. It looks so friendly. It really has some really beautiful parts to it. But my favorite parts to it were the worst parts, were like the parts in the basement or the surgical area, like the surgical room, just because you get so much activity there. And you can just imagine what it would have been like in its heyday. And basement's just really bad. And that's weird to say that's my favorite part, but as a paranormal investigator, that's what we're there for, is to get, some sort of something from a spirit, some sort of response. And I always felt like we either got a response or just really bad feelings. And yeah, so those are my favorite part. I really like that little insane asylum that was never an insane asylum too. That was cute. And the tunnel was cool. So it was a cool little spot. It's like a little nugget, and a random nugget on a random street. And yeah, I'm glad it's still there.
Yeah, like for me, I only had gone there. I probably told you guys already, maybe a couple times, to go see if we could bomb the building or paint it. But it was already known that it was a hot place. Like it was hot. Like there was always security. Like you get kicked out. So it wasn't like that interesting to me because I knew it was hot. So it wasn't like really worth trying to get in if we were going to be chased out. So I remember going one time just to test it out, like to the front steps. It was late at night. The front steps, like, the walkway thing to the main door.
Yeah, where it had the big sign, Linda Vista.
Yeah, just going up there just to see if anybody pop out. And they did. The security guard started like talking like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like talking crap or whatever. And we were just like, nothing. We're just chilling. We didn't have paint or nothing. We just wanted to test it out. And he did pop out. So he must have been, already looking. But that was it, because it was just known to be hot. So I don't know. Maybe it was like when I was living in LA. So maybe like 2013, 2014 already. So it was already like before it got remodeled, obviously. But it was probably after that whole thing with you guys.
It was. And that time got really weird after that. Like it was already weird, but it got really weird where I heard and I can't substantiate any of the claims that they were having like random tattooers in the rooms and just like random stuff going on there. So it got really weird in those times. So I'm glad you didn't go in, honestly. I mean, I remember them having like paranormal women in there, you know, investigating naked, and it was like a gimmick. Yeah, so it got really weird. So I'm so glad you didn't go in during that time.
No. Yeah, I mean, our intentions were something else, but yeah.
I know, but still, the people there are just sketchy.
Yeah.
Like the people, the paranormal team that ran it.
Sorry, go ahead, Wayne.
Well, the worst thing about it was before that paranormal team took over, you would just talk to the caretaker and book a time to get in and investigate. It was just through him. Somehow this team got together with that guy. So basically, I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know. We can make more money doing it this way. So they took over the booking of the paranormal teams, and it was whoever their friends were over whoever booked first, you know? So the one thing that's really sucks about it is if they were actually a legitimate paranormal team, they had the run of the entire place, and they could have set up like a 2-week camera thing or something on one floor and close off that floor, and it would have been like a paranormal laboratory, perfect paranormal laboratory to investigate things like that. They didn't do one thing like that. There hasn't been, no one made a documentary about it, paranormal, anything that happened in there, nothing. They were just there for the money. My opinion, they were just there for the money.
Well, now we have a discussion about this on a podcast. So
yeah.
But so before we wrap it up, because we have a few more minutes time wise, I did want to ask the question and get that the person that was a supporter asked, just to get kind of your perspective, because now it's very, very different. Fast forward to now, and they were curious about, and I'll read the question in verbatim, and then you guys could share your answers. Not verbatim, but your thoughts. Okay, so the person asked, I'm curious about Linda Vista. I stopped by before they converted into senior living. I'm wondering if the residents are experiencing hauntings. Any thoughts? Who wants to go first?
You go first.
I've heard people, I wonder if it's haunted still. It's got to be haunted. It has to be haunted. I haven't heard one legitimate claim that it was. The only thing I found, I think it was a Yelp review or something, where one person said, yeah, I live here and sometimes things happen and we hear noises and someone should investigate this place. It didn't sound like a senior wrote it. You know what I mean? I couldn't substantiate it. So I don't, you know, if it was really as super active as some have boosted the history of Linda Vista, you'd have people running out of there and there'd be news reports that no one could stay at Hollenbeck Terrace. It's a big flop because no one wants to stay there because it's so active and so haunted. But obviously that hasn't happened.
Yeah, interesting. That's an interesting perspective. So yeah, what about you, Sabrina?
So let me preface this to say that you and I, we went not too long ago and we did a whole walk around the entire property. And we took some time and sat around and just kind of felt the vibe. Because that's kind of my thing. I kind of feel vibes. And I will say it felt completely different. And to go back to the question, I think that it's a slippery slope that we're on when we try to dredge up possible paranormal activity in the senior living home, just because we don't know, like, how bad the seniors are in there. We saw different types of seniors doing different types of activities on the outside, but we don't know what's on the inside. We don't want our seniors to be plagued with bad dreams or to be scared where they're sleeping. And the only way we could possibly know is by word of mouth. So I think it's safe to say that there's definitely activity, but I don't think that there's anything that's harming them. That bad feeling I used to feel before, I didn't feel it the last time we went. It felt like a new piece, a new beginning for this place that had been like demoralized by the bad happenings that had happened over the year. And these seniors have given it a new life. And I wouldn't want to go and wreck the last years of their lives by asking questions unnecessarily. And I think that she'll always, and she meaning Linda Vista, will always have paranormal activity, but to what kind of extent and where at and which like what part of the buildings, it's hard to say. But I think that maybe there's a truce going on right now, because it seems a lot more warm and sunny than it ever had in the past in any of my experiences.
Yeah, even for me, that I don't really get feelings. It was just very nice and calm, and then the senior man came out, right? There was a man that came out.
Yeah.
And he was, I think we just said hi, or if you live here, and he said, "Oh, I thought you were my granddaughter or something."
Yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't dig deep into him. We're like, "Oh no, we just like the building," or I don't forget what we said, but just something.
Yeah, it looks so cute in that little building, how they cleaned it up in the front.
Yeah, it was, and I was trying to see from the inside. You could see like a really nice lobby type of thing. It was really nice. They restored it really well.
It looks like the color has been painted fresh. It's like a new beginning for this place that was doomed. It seems almost as if it was doomed from the beginning, in the sense that it closed so soon and it had such a horrible reputation. And now it sits with pride, boasting, a community of thriving seniors. From what we could see, I think the only way that we could properly gather information about possibly haunted activity is through employees that work there. But we didn't really see any employees. At least I don't remember seeing any employees. But it feels happy and prideful and bright. And I've seen seniors gardening, and that was such a wonderful thing to see, especially because I'd been in there and in the trenches, if you will, like in the basement, and feeling and having experiences down there, and it being a horrible thing. And to see it come from that to this, I don't know, maybe it just needed a chance for peace. And now it looks like they have peace.
And Wayne, you haven't been there since it's been remodeled?
I haven't been there since the Paranormal Stu thing happened. I mean, I've driven by a year or two ago, but I didn't stop. There was no parking anyway, and it's not Linda Vista anymore, so I wasn't really interested.
Maybe we got to go back and just go with Wayne and just see what
you can. You could be my
definitely.
You guys could be my caretakers, because I'm 57. I can actually live there now.
I know, right? So, okay. So thank you for, your response for the person that was really interested. So we'll go ahead and end it now. So basically, if you guys want to continue to follow us on our podcast page, look for us on Beyond the Facade podcast. You can follow me on my personal one, Doña Junta Swap _Chronicles, and I post all kinds of stuff there. And so thank you for that.
Yeah, and you can catch me at observing _spooks and other vices.
You can. That's the best thing to do, is look me up on Instagram, Mr. Poe's Morgue. I have a link tree of all my other stuff that I do, and I even got some interviews, including one of the last ones I did with you guys, on that link tree. So you can have all those links in one place.
Yeah, and we do have to shout you out, Wayne. He's the one that helps us edit the videos. So shout out to Wayne. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Wayne.
We have to learn ourselves. I said that was going to be a goal. I need to go to your house so you could teach me. I don't know, but thank you again for that. But anyhow, just so we'll wrap it up from now. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.